Good morning. My name is Councillor Gord Perks. I'm the chair of the Toronto East York Community Council. The clerk has confirmed that we have quorum present, so I'd like to now call meeting 30 to order. Today's meeting is being held by video conference. City staff are also connected to the meeting by video conference. The public will continue to participate electronically and can watch the meeting streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com Toronto City Council Live. I ask everyone for their patience and with any delays or problems with technical issues. The clerk's staff have connected all registered speakers to the meeting by audio. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Toronto East York Community Council page at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. Clerk's IT staff will also be available to assist members with their devices. As part of each agenda item, I will ask members to raise their hand or unmute their microphones if they wish to speak or question staff. I will then create a speakers list and will call on members when it is their turn to speak. When voting on an item or a motion, I ask that members ensure that their video is on and that their hand is raised to indicate their vote. Members, I want to remind you that you must submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at teycc@toronto.ca to help with motions. Although we are in different locations and meeting remotely today, the Community Council would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Members, are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you have an interest, please indicate. I do not see any. I need a motion to confirm the minutes from our last meeting held November 24th, 2021. Councillor Bradford. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Okay, so members will now proceed through the agenda rundown. Mercifully, this is the most brief meeting I've seen in quite some time, so that may mitigate against the fact that we're all virtual today. So the first item that I'm going to call is changes to Business Improvement Area Boards of Management. Councillor Cressy, Leighton, or Matlow? Councillor Cressy. All those in favor, opposed, carried.
What item number is it, Mr. Chair, please?
Item 9. Councillor Fletcher, welcome.
Thank you.
We're now on item 30.10, 147 Spadina Avenue, zoning amendment application, preliminary report. Councillor Cressy, oh, there is a deputant on that item, so we'll hold that. Item TE30.11, 100 Davenport Road, zoning amendment application, preliminary report. Councillor Leighton.
I'll move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE30.12, 412 to 418 Church Street and 79 to 81 Granby Street, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application, preliminary report. Councillor Wong-Tam.
Yes, thank you. I do have a motion, and if I can ask the clerk to put the amendment onto the screen. Thank you very much. The amendment you folks are all very familiar with. It's almost our standard Ward 13 clause. On top of the community consultation meeting, I'm asking that we hold a site plan working group meeting with the applicant as we move towards the review of this application. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll take the amendment and the item together. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 30.13, 475 Yonge Street, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application, preliminary report, Ward 13. That's you, Councillor Wong-Tam.
Thank you very much, Chair. I may have to hold this item down unless the clerks tell me that they have received both motions from my office. I sent a second one not too long ago. I just want to make sure they had enough time to review it. And Ellen, it's Councillor
I'm
Wong.
sorry. Yeah, sorry, Councillor Wong-Tam. We just received it, so we'll need to have a look at that and after the rundown. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next is item TE3014, noise exemption permit refusal appeal, 45 Strachan Avenue. Councillor Cressy.
I move recommendation 1 to refuse the application.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE30.15, East Harbour Transit Oriented Community Stakeholder Meeting Update, Ward 14. Councillor Fletcher.
Yes, I have some questions, please, for staff. I'd indicated to the
Okay,
clerk.
so we'll hold that item.
Thank you.
Item TE30.16. Regent Park, oh, sorry, I just did that. No, I didn't.
No, that is the correct one.
Yeah, okay. Guys, listen, doing this from sharing remotely is going to be just a panic. Okay. Item TE30.16, Regent Park Traffic Study, Councillor Wong-Tam.
Thank you very much. I will have to hold that down. And again, Ellen, I just sent you a revised motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item TE30.17, improvements to pedestrian boulevards on Front Street East. Councillor Fletcher.
It's Councillor Wong-Tam's.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Wong-Tam. Okay.
Thank you very much. I would like to move the staff recommendations to receive the report and to thank staff for all their hard work. What we're trying to do on Front Street, if I can just very quickly say, we're basically trying to align the Front Street boulevards to make sure that we can make it more pedestrian friendly. This is going to require a significant amount of coordination. I know that the BI has very ambitious plans to make sure that all the site plan reviews are going to essentially align with their master plan for urban design. And we're heading to a good place. There may be some applications that have gone out ahead of this particular body of work, but we're trying to bring it all in-house. And that will require significant coordination and work from staff, including transportation services and of course city planning and urban design. And I want to thank them for this work because I know it's not going to be easy, especially considering most of you will know that St. Lawrence neighborhood is under massive redevelopment. We've got lots of development pressure, and lining up everybody's applications to ensure we get a great Front Street is going to take a colossal amount of work. So I'm looking forward to the work. I know it's going to be heavy, but wherever possible, we're going to make this done. We'll get it done, and we're going to hopefully leave behind a much better, improved street. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. Item TE30.18, Portland's flood protection, Cherry Street temporary diversion road, time extension. Councillor Fletcher.
I'm going to move the staff recommendation, please.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE30.19, construction staging area, 2639 Dundas Street West. I'm going to move the staff recommendations. Please be advised there's a revised report that an attachment that were posted just recently, December 29th. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE30.20, construction staging area, 162 Queens Quay East, Richardson Street. Councillor Cressy.
I will move the staff recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 30.21, construction staging area, 15 Devonshire Place. Councillor Layton.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll move the recommendations in the report.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 30.22, construction staging area, 500 Dupont Street, Hammond Place. Councillor Layton.
I'll move the recommendations in the report.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 3023, accessible parking spaces, January 2022, delegated. I'll move the staff recommendations. Anyone have any motions on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 3024, corridor safety review, O'Connor Drive, Toronto-Danforth, Ward 14. Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have some motions that the clerk has, and this, of course, is an ongoing project for transportation for the community and my office. I want to thank Barbara Gray and her team for responding so quickly to the safety review on O'Connor and making changes immediately. There were reduced to 40 overnight signs up. There's a number of other things. This particular piece is to actually stop turning prohibition at Dawnlands, which is a very difficult intersection. But I do have a question for the staff, Mr. Chair, that I
Well,
forgot to
okay,
ask.
so we'll hold that item.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Yep.
Item TE 30.25, parking amendments for wards Parkdale High Park 4, Davenport 9, Toronto-Danforth 14, under delegated authority.
I'll move it.
You'll move it?
Yep.
Okay, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 30.26, parking amendments for wards Parkdale High Park 4, Davenport 9, Toronto-Danforth 14, non-delegated.
I'll move that again.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item 30.27, all-way stop at the intersection of Parkview Hill Crescent and Pedestrian Avenue. Councillor Bradford.
Thanks very much. I would like to move the staff recommendations there.
All those in
Oh, sorry.
favor?
No, I'd like to move the recommendations in my letter to install.
Oh, okay. So all those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 30.28, appointment to the Board of Management of Cecil Community Center. Councillor Layton.
So I'll move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 30.29, 403 Keel Street, zoning bylaw amendment application preliminary report. I'll move that. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 30.30, 645 through 655 Northcliffe Boulevard, zoning bylaw amendment application preliminary report. Councillor Matlow.
I'll move the report.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 30.31, 2345 Yonge Street, zoning bylaw amendment application preliminary report. Councillor Matlow.
I'll move this report too.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 30.32, 2135 through 53 Broadview Avenue, 344 Eastern Avenue, and 18 through 34 and 40 Lewis Street, official plan amendment and zoning amendment applications preliminary report. Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you, Chair. I have a motion here on this, which is the community consultation meeting, but Helen has that. It's to look at the inclusion of long-term affordable housing units provided within proposed development and include the number and size of the affordable units in the city's planning, the final planning report. To work with transportation services, this is a very complicated intersection, and I cannot simply rely on the developer's transportation study. We need to have that looked at very carefully. And thirdly, were 6 houses. They've been abandoned for, I can't tell you how many years, at least 13, 14 years. And they were all bought together as one, and there were many rental units. Unfortunately, all the staff, that would be Gwen McIntosh, and unfortunately our dearly departed Denise Graham, they knew this very well. I'm not sure where we're going to find that, but this will instruct staff to get at that so we can ensure the rental replacement units are rebuilt in this development. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Item TE 30.33, 373 Front Street East and 90 Mill Street Site Plan Control Application Report. Councillor Wong Tam.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will be withdrawing that item from the agenda.
Okay, so there's a motion to withdraw. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, I now need a motion to introduce items 3034 through 3042. Councillor Bradford, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, I'm just going to work through those quickly. Item 3034, amendment to 1 hour parking on St. Helens Avenue. Councillor Bailao.
I move recommendations in the letter.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 30.35, bollard installations, Ward 9. Councillor Bailao.
Move recommendations in the letter.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 30.36, streetscape improvements for the Ossington BIA. Councillor Cressy.
I'm actually going to withdraw that item as we're working with staff on it.
Okay, motion to withdraw. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 30.37, speed limit reductions on Roxborough Street East between Yonge Street and Mount Pleasant Road. Councillor Leighton.
Yes, I'd like to introduce the motion and put forward the recommendations in the letter.
Okay, all those in favor of the recommendations in the letter? Opposed? That carries. Item TE 30.38, implementation of permit parking on Kensington Avenue between Baldwin Street and St. Andrew Street. Councillor Leighton.
I'd like to move the recommendations in the letter.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 30.39, 49 Felsted Avenue, zoning matter. Councillor Fletcher.
There's a speaker here, Chair.
Oh, you're correct. Thank you. Item TE 30.40, safer streets in Old Riverdale. Councillor Fletcher.
Yes, I'd like to move this and really ask for this to be expedited. This is also, this little zone is being used by Metrolinx for their access to the tracks for the expansion, RER, whatever they've called it now. So there's a lot going on. It's contained area, no way out. So very happy to have staff initiate or begin this work as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 30.41, parking amendments on Elm Street. Councillor Bradford and Fletcher.
On Elm Street? Sorry?
Oh, sorry. No. Oh,
On Coxwell and Mortimer.
For 42.
hang on. I've got my notes mixed
Oh,
up.
41. Yeah, that's right.
41. That's Councillor Leighton. My apologies.
No problem.
Councillor Layton?
Yes, I'd like to move the recommendations in the letter.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 30.42, road safety improvements around Coxwell Avenue and Mortimer Avenue. This one is Councillors Fletcher and Bradford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a school in my ward, but many kids come from Councillor Bradford's ward. Interestingly enough, the community safety zone doesn't include Coxwell or Mortimer at current time, the school safety zone. So Councillor Bradford and I would like to have this passed here today. And if you would like to make a comment, I'm happy to have it.
Yeah, I would just add, Mr. Chair, thanks to Councillor Fletcher and the community for their work on this. You've got R.H. McGregor Public School, you got Michael Guerin Hospital, you got the East York Civic Center, all at that intersection. And there's a lot of challenges and frequently we have close calls there. So thanks to the community for reaching out. Thank Councillor Fletcher for her support on this. And hopefully we can make some changes to make that intersection safer as soon as possible.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right. Members, that completes the agenda rundown. I see that it is now 10 o'clock, so we can go to our timed items. Item TE30.1, 677 Wellington Street, official plan amendment application, final report, Ward 10. Are there any questions of staff? Seeing none, there are no deputants on this item. Councillor Cressy.
Very briefly, I will move the staff recommendations. And just note for members that this is the long planned, long awaited and hard work to unlock the Wellington structure and to turn it into a new community, cultural and city asset. And so with kudos to city planning and CREM and Create-TO, but most especially Councillor Layton, who rolled this rock up the hill, and I became councillor for his area and got to kick it over the ledge. So with that, happy to move the recommendations, and frankly, it should be Councillor Layton moving them, but thanks, Mike.
What an odd metaphor, kicking it over the ledge, kicking it through the upright, scoring the goal. Like you could have gone a lot of different places with that ball kicking analogy, Joe. Had to go
Putting
over
it in
the
the
ledge,
net.
putting it
Yeah.
in the net. Like there was 100 other Mr. Sporto.
Chair, I have no further comment.
I think we're all looking askance at you, Councillor Cressy, for clumsy metaphors. Okay, I'm just going to make a note of that. All those in
Maybe
favor?
I'll just say I'll move the staff recommendations to get the Wellington Destructor vaccinated, which
There
is
we
my new
go.
metaphor
Get it
for everything.
vaccinated. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE30.2, 190-200 Soudan Avenue and 18 Brownlow Avenue, zoning amendment and rental housing demolition applications, request for directions report. Are there any questions of staff? Seeing none, Councillor Matlow.
I move the report.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. The succinctness is appreciated today. Item TE30.3, inclusion on the City of Toronto's Heritage Register, Bloor Street Study Cultural Heritage Resource Assessment, St. Helens Avenue to Perth Avenue properties. Councillor Bailao.
Move staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE30.4, residential demolition application. There is a deputant on this one. Item TE30.5, residential demolition application 213 High Park Avenue. Sorry? No? I'm going to move the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE30.6, refusal of a clothing drop box location permit application located at 2 Regal Road. Councillor Bailao.
Move the alternate recommendations.
All those in favor of the alternate recommendations? Opposed, if any, that carries. Item TE30.7, refusal of a clothing drop box location permit application located at 120 Raglan Avenue. Councillor Matlow.
I move the alternate recommendation to approve.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 30.8. Application to remove a private tree, 343 Runnymede Road. I'll move the staff recommendations. All those in favor, opposed, carried. So that takes us to item. Oh, okay. 30.4. Why don't we do that one now?
Councillor Perks,
Yes.
I need to hold that down. We are working on a motion with staff.
Okay, so we'll hold that.
Thanks.
That takes us then to item 3010.
To the chair, sorry, this is Ellen. I
Yes.
just wondered if we could, on item 30.5, all I heard was alternate rec. I don't know exactly which recommendation in the report the councillor wanted to move.
On 30.5,
Yes.
I'm moving recommendation 2, approve the application to demolish the 2-story detached with conditions.
Thank you.
My apologies. Okay. That takes us to item 30.10, which is 147 Spadina Avenue, zoning amendment application preliminary report. We have a deputant, Mark Henderson, from the District Lofts community. I could just see if Mark is available and connected to the meeting.
I'm here.
Good morning,
Can you hear
Mark. Welcome. You're going to have 5 minutes to address the committee. If you could begin whenever you want.
Thank you very much, Councillor Perks. Yeah, I represent the District Lofts community at 388 Richmond Street West, and I'm part of a committee that's been formed with a mandate to represent the interests of the owners and residents of this address as they relate to this proposed development at 147 Spadina. In general, I can say that the community here was rather stunned and a bit dismayed, very dismayed by the initial application for this project. It appears to be a rather extreme exercise and overreach, containing a very large number of exemptions to almost all existing city guidelines and many other growth development requirements the city has issued. On the highest level, and from a Queen and Spadina neighborhood perspective, we feel the overall height and massing of the proposal is out of place. With District Lofts, I mean, this building standing at 14 stories, the Morgan across the street, directly across Spadina at 15 stories, and even the planned north and south Queen Spadina subway station development with towers of 15 and 14 stories respectively. The proposed height of the 147 Spadina application at 25 stories is very much out of step with the Queen Spadina neighborhood, both current and planned. Adding to this, and this is from the neighborhood perspective as well, District Lofts is an iconic building design which now, 22 years later, still stands as one of the great examples of modernistic architecture in the city of Toronto. It's garnered a number of awards, including Ontario Association of Architects Architectural Excellence Awards, the Toronto Architecture and Urban Design Awards, and it will be a loss, and the community feels it will be a loss for the Queen Spadina neighborhood to conceal the west end view of one of the most significant multi-residential buildings in recent times. And I speak to the view of the center well and the catwalks connecting the north and south wings, which I hope you're all familiar with. Certainly, the preliminary report as published by Community Planning outlines many of the key issues of concern that our committee has also identified as major impacts to the District Lofts community, including but not limited to building height, which I just spoke to briefly, base building height, building setbacks and step backs, tower floor plate size, compliance with tall buildings guidelines, shadow impacts for sure, and right to light, proposed site access, related traffic congestion and safety, and others, including heritage impact and green standards. Just to take a couple of these areas, and I'm going to speak to base building height and setbacks and step backs. We feel it's important in these initial stages to identify some of the quality of life impacts this proposed development will have on the district loss community. The proposed development has a base building that abuts directly to the west wall of district lofts. There's no setback. It stretches to the southern lot line, the front of the retail space, basically the sidewalk, and rises 14 stories with a secondary tower rising to 25. There are numerous issues with the lack of the setback step back in the proposal, a key one being that it seems to treat the west end of district loss as a blank wall, which it clearly is not. Amongst other concerns, this proposed design would directly block a number of west-facing windows in both wings and on the 5th floor, and there are quite a few of these windows. Directly block by abutting the western end of a number of balconies in the south wing. And it would seal off the interior courtyard well. The opening of the well to the west is the only source of direct light for the 6-level terraces within the courtyard, and there's quite a few of those. Residents on this level will no longer enjoy any direct light, and their ability to maintain their terrace green space, the plants and gardens, will be severely diminished or eliminated. It is a significant source of light for the majority of all district loft residents who have prime windows and hallways facing the interior of this courtyard. And finally, it introduces a number of privacy security issues based on extremely close proximity of the 147 Spadina design. There are floors where terraces are less than a meter away from this building. In summary, there are a number of issues within the 147 Spadina development application that are major concerns to the district loss community, many of which city planning has identified in the preliminary report. We hope that with these comments, we have provided context as to some of the impacts to our residents. Many of the points that I've covered here have been made within a letter recently sent to the councillor's office and city planning. And we look forward to seeing how these items and others yet to be identified are dealt with and resolved as we move forward. We are certainly available at any time for further discussion, and I thank the council for their time today.
Thank you very much. Almost exactly on 5 minutes. Are there any questions for Mark? No, seeing none. Mark, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us today. Are there any questions of staff on this item? Seeing none, Councillor Cressy.
Well, thank you. And I can begin by moving the staff recommendations in front of us, which is to schedule the community consultation. This is the preliminary report, not the final report in front of us. I want to thank Mark for the deputation. Certainly, we've received the application. Today, by passing this motion, we will be proceeding to further review this with community input and hopefully to address a number of the issues that staff have already identified in the playroom report. So this is the beginning, not the end. And I anticipate further discussion and look forward to the community meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. That takes us to item TE30.13. There we go. 475 Yonge Street, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application preliminary report. Councillor Wong-Tam, you had held that to submit motions. Do we have those motions?
If Ellen can confirm that for us.
Oh, there they are.
Yeah, 13 is ready.
Okay, fantastic. And Ellen, there's a second motion as well.
Just got it. I'm working on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the motion is broken into two parts. One is very recognizable to this committee to ensure that the community consultation meeting is going to be accessible. Therefore, if there are requirements for ASL provisions, that the applicant will pay for that. And secondly, to set up the site plan working group and traffic management committee. The follow-up motion is that 475 Yonge Street, you're all going to recognize as the Marriott Hotel. It is a significantly, I don't know, Ellen, I don't know if you have that motion, but essentially the motion is to direct the.
Councillor Wong-Tam, if I could just hold your time. We need to know if the motion is ready before we proceed with this item. Just a moment.
I'm very sorry. I'm a bit little, we just put the motion up on 13.
Ellen, I
To the
couldn't
clerk,
see the
Councillor
bottom of the
Wong-Tam, it's
motion.
okay. Councillor Wong-Tam. So to the clerk, Councillor Wong-Tam has indicated that there's an additional motion which she emailed to you. If you have that and it's prepared, we can continue with this item. Otherwise, well, I'll have to stand it down.
I'm sorry. Yes, I thought we already had it in there, but I'll have to review it a lot with the emails. So I'll need
Okay.
it. Okay.
So we'll hold this item down and return to it when the clerk has had a chance to prepare. Members, please remember, everybody is working remotely at this meeting. So things that when we meet in person take 30 seconds, take longer. And this will take even longer than the virtual meetings that we've had. I'm not physically in the same room as the clerk, so everything will take longer. Your patience is appreciated.
You're all doing great. Thank you.
So next, we go to item 30.15, which is the East Harbor Transit Oriented Community Stakeholders Meeting Update. Councillor Fletcher, you held this? Do you have questions of staff?
Yes, I did. I asked if they could please be present. I think that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Why don't you start out then?
Thank you. Who's here?
Well, why don't you ask a question? We'll see if there's appropriate staff.
Oh, I did ask last night. I asked the clerk to make sure that either Mr. Pertola was here or Ms. Vumbakis is here. So those are my questions directed to those staff, Chair.
Please start and we'll see if we have the appropriate staff.
Councillor Fletcher, it's Linda McDonald here, and through the chair, we did request that James Pertola and Carrie Vumbakis join the meeting. I'm just double checking to see if they are here, and so I will do that right now.
Mr. Pertola signed this report, Mr. Chair, so I expect to ask questions.
I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Want to move on while we wait and see where it's happening?
No, I'm going to give a moment to see whether they're.
Okay. I think if I hadn't made that request yesterday, I would be more sympathetic, Mr. Chair, but I made it.
Yeah, I just scrolled through the participants who I have at the meeting and I don't see either of them here presently. So we'll hold this for a minute and we'll move to the next item. Item TE30.16, the Regent Park Traffic Study Review. Councillor Wong-Tam, you held that?
I did.
Do you have questions of staff?
A question.
Councillor Wong-Tam? Oh dear.
Whoops.
Well, this isn't good.
To the host, sorry, to the chair, this is the host. If you can give Councillor Wong-Tam just a moment. The councillor should be able to hear us in a moment as they reconnect. And
Okay.
we'll just ask that they turn off their camera so that they can speak. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Can you folks hear me now?
I can hear you now, Councillor Wong-Tam. It's been suggested that while you're asking questions, perhaps you could turn your camera off.
Okay,
We're having
I will
a
do that.
bandwidth
Thank
issue
you.
at your end. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Floor is yours.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I'm in a part of my apartment that is quiet without a child, but it also has the worst access to Wi-Fi. I wanted to just move the motion, and I was trying to get the attention of the clerk to see if they have that ready. Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. The motion is to ask staff to report back every January until on any of the outstanding road safety enhancements that are approved but needed in Regent Park, and to install wherever possible Oh, actually, Ellen, this motion has some typos in it. Not wherever impossible, wherever possible. All outstanding road safety traffic enhancements, including any outdated signage. Sorry, this is a rather clumsy process, so I do have a lot of empathy for you, Chair, and to the committee clerks. The motion is largely to number one, direct staff to remind everybody that we still have a lot of work to do to ensure that the 69 acres of Regent Park are going to be well designed and safe, especially from a road safety perspective. I want to recognize that staff's report today is responding to a series of motions that I have put forward, including reduction of speed on all the major arterial roads. And although the speed has been reduced, it hasn't been necessarily reflected in the traffic signage. So we've got to be able to align that so that timing of speed reduction takes place at the same time as signs are actually installed. Thank you very much, Ellen. And I'm hoping that we can have those signs installed by no later than the second quarter of this year. It's important for us, especially in Regent Park, is that phases 4 and 5 are not complete. So a number of the roads are obviously unassumed. There are some conflicts between who is going to enforce the traffic rules. We've had pedestrian deaths and collisions in Regent Park. And what we're trying to do is everything that doesn't always get considered under the planning review. I know that we oftentimes receive applications, traffic studies from the applicant that study traffic movement and access and egress movement out of new buildings, but from a perspective of reviewing Regent Park from a holistic point of view, that you have to take a look at every single street, how the buildings are performing, how people are moving in and out of the neighborhood to ensure safety. So we have received a number of concerns from the area residents that they wanted us to do a comprehensive review. This report basically summarizes a number of the requests that came out of this community council, but I know that this report doesn't necessarily get to all the rollout implementation. So that's why I'm asking for an annual review of road safety enhancements, what's outstanding in Regent, what needs to be done. So therefore we can keep an eye on it and then to track its process until it is complete. So I just wanted to say thank you to staff. I know that my office has been very persistent in getting your attention. I want to thank you for giving us your attention and time. I know that this is an important issue for you folks as well, especially as you're managing not just this neighborhood from a road safety perspective, but also all the other files that you have going on. And I know that you'll work with us to continue to prioritize the area safety. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions of the mover? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next, we have item TE30.24, Corridor Safety Review, O'Connor Drive. Councillor Fletcher, you held this?
Yes, I did. I had some questions for staff, as you recall.
Okay, very good.
In the report, you note the number of accidents or collisions at Donlands and O'Connor, which is quite something. I think it's over 3 years, it's 30. And I'm wondering how that stands up to the other intersections, or if that's typical, or if that's quite a number.
Through the chair, yes, we would have to do a comparison. It's difficult. We'd have to find an intersection with similar characteristics, lane configurations, volumes, that sort of thing. So we haven't looked at that level of detail just yet.
Would you be able to look at something? Let's not say exact configuration, Mr. Clement, but look at Pape, look at Coxwell, and just see what those number of collisions were at those other intersections as well, because this is the O'Connor study. Is that possible?
Certainly, we could do comparisons of overall numbers. That doesn't always tell the entire story because we're
No, I
also
understand.
looking at, specific collision types. Some are obviously maybe more prevalent than others.
Yes, I think that would be how, even the corner, or it's not really, I don't know if you call it an intersection or not, at Danforth, Broadview and O'Connor. It's a big dead man's curve is what we call it. But there's been a number of crashes there, if we could include that. So I do have a motion. If you could, when you're coming back, just let us know what those other collision data looks like for O'Connor and whether or not Donlands is really stands out or not, or if it's kind of typical for that corridor. Is that possible to be able to add that in?
Certainly through the chair, Councillor, we can do some type of comparison of the various intersection on O'Connor Drive.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. That was my question. I just jumped out at me. Mr. Chair, I'll move those motions now.
Very good. Are there any questions of the mover? No? Anyone else to speak to the item? No? Okay, we'll take it all as a package. All those in favor?
No, I'm
Oh.
speaking to the item.
Oh,
I
okay.
thought you
Go
were giving
ahead.
other people a chance. How about giving me a chance?
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Floor is yours.
I just want to thank Mr. Clement and the entire team from Transportation. They have really been outstanding. And the community has rallied in such a strong way to look at this major arterial that takes all of the traffic from the Don Valley and brings it into East York and then into downtown, off Don Mills Road and then off the Overley Bridge onto Paper Donlands. I'm very pleased with the progress that we're making here. Turns out O'Connor is a community safety zone and has been set up as such since I think 2005 or 2002 actually. So it was one of the original community safety zones, not tied to a school, but we are now activating it as a community safety zone within very short order of having a large community meeting on Zoom. The 40-kilometer signs were put in. It was passed at Community Council. They went in immediately. Thank you very much, Transportation staff. There were a lot of bushes around a church. That sight lines were completely obliterated, and Transportation staff went out and had that cut back right away. We are looking at, as I said, this restriction on turns onto O'Connor, as well as coming off the Don Valley. It feeds the Don Valley. It's a very complicated road, but there's residential on both sides and schools quite nearby. So this is a big undertaking, and I really thank Transportation Services for being such a great partner, being creative and thinking ahead, different things we can do, as well as the community. I even got 20 letters from local children at a school that they each wrote a separate letter and said how important road safety was on O'Connor. So I'm very pleased with the response after citizen who walked out into the street and was run down in late November. Very sad event, and people are rallying to make this not just a corridor for drivers coming off the Don Valley or going onto the Don Valley, but a wonderful street on which many people live and cross as pedestrians and cyclists. So thank you, Mr. Chair. And with that, I'll move my motions and the staff report.
Thank you. Any questions of the mover? No. Anyone else to speak? No. So we'll take it all as a package. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Okay, the next item we have is item TE30.39. We have a deputant on that item. Give me just a second. I'll tell you who that is. Maybe I won't. There we go. Benjamin Stein. No, Benjamin Stein? Is Benjamin with us?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Very well. Thank you, Benjamin, and welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the committee. You can start as soon as you're ready.
Thank you. All right then, since spring 2018, the lives of hundreds of East Toronto residents have been disrupted by a soccer facility at St. Patrick's Secondary School, 49 Felstead Avenue, constructed and managed by Razor Management Incorporated in partnership with the Toronto Catholic District School Board. This facility has been used predominantly for rentals by adult competitive and recreational sports leagues. It is a professional level stadium turf that has been squeezed into a residential zone. Neighbors were never properly consulted about the construction or use of this facility. When we protested at the disruption it created, we were vilified in public by TCDSB officials and members of the press as NIMBYs. But we are not NIMBYs. We are a diverse community of all ages, backgrounds, and income levels. I've spoken with many of my neighbors over the years. Not one ever mentioned property values as an issue. Not one. Our concerns were to be able to put our children to bed, to do shift work, to care for sick members of our families, and to manage our health needs in our own homes without relentless noise and light pollution, as well as increased traffic, parking congestion, and incidents of trespassing, property damage, vandalism, verbal abuse, public drinking, and public urination. When bad publicity and a noise violation charge finally compelled the TCDSB to enter into informal mediation talks with residents, we made it clear that the zoning question must be addressed and that any agreement for use must be within legal parameters. TCDSB continued to ignore this issue. Ultimately, the City of Toronto, which had organized the mediation, informed the participants that from the city's perspective, correcting the zoning issue must take precedence, and that any mediated agreement between the parties without proper zoning legalization would be insufficient to overcome the zoning issues. At this point, nothing was preventing the TCDSB from continuing to consult with residents. Instead, they simply continued to allow the facility to be used for competitive recreational play, and did this during the pandemic, albeit at reduced levels. No further action was taken to address neighbors' concerns. No proper management of the facility was ever attempted. Repeated communications to the TCDSB elicited assurances of action, followed by silence. This has been the TCDSB's unethical and irresponsible method of obstruction, neglect, and mismanagement since 2018. This facility is now well known and attracts users as early as 6 in the morning and as late as midnight, year-round, including Christmas Day 2 weeks ago, meters from our homes. If rental for competitive play is allowed to resume in the spring of 2022, it will be the 4th year that residents have endured these disruptions. Clear management, protocols, and additional barriers are needed to control access and reasonable use. But it is obvious that TCDSB has no interest in taking this issue seriously and will only act if compelled to do so. From the start, our municipal councillor, Paula Fletcher, has been very responsive to residents' concerns and has worked alongside us in this matter. But there appears to be a lack of coordination and initiative between different municipal departments, which has resulted in this situation continuing for an unconscionable amount of time. Rather than continuing to shunt the problem from office to office, we respectfully request that all municipal departments concerned with land use protocols work together to solve it so that our neighborhood is not exploited and victimized for yet another year. In conclusion, let me be candid. Many residents are close to despair. We appeal to the City of Toronto to make this matter a first priority and to address it without further delay. We are glad to see that this issue has been put on the Council's agenda and hope that this indicates a clear and swift pathway to resolution. My thanks to the Council for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Benjamin?
Yes, I'll just ask Mr. Stein a couple of questions. Nice to see you, Benny. Well, I can't see you, but nice that you're here. That all other Toronto Catholic District School Board permits run only till 9 o'clock, I understand.
Yep.
But this seems to go till 11 under some kind of special license.
From 2018 and 2018, part of 2019, I believe, it ran till 11 o'clock. With community pressure, the operator bumped it down to 10 o'clock. And that's the way it's, and that's what has been the usual. Let's put it this way. That's a time when the lights go off. Okay.
The lights go off at 10.
Players will still actually play there. There are ambient lights from the building directly to the north of the field, and players can easily continue games well up to midnight.
And is that lights from the school?
Yes.
Yes, so the school ambient lighting, it makes enough light for the,
Yeah, for people to play pickup games and
right.
kick the ball against the fence, yell, scream, set off fireworks, etc.
I know it's very, very disturbing, and people have moved all of their kind of back patio living to the front of their homes.
Sorry, yes, that's correct. If you walk down Torbick Road, you'll see that many people now have arranged to be able to sit at the south end of their homes, because it's really pretty much next to impossible when games are going to be able to function. And also, this is, I mean, even more crucially, that children are now not able to go to sleep in those north parts of the houses, relatively small houses, I think.
So, yes, so you support this letter that brings everything together, get a report on why the noise charges have not been followed up, whether somehow the new noise bylaw is containing the ability to pursue that, the zoning matter where not actually zoned for this. They would need to come into compliance and to have everything start to move into one stream, correct?
That's certainly what we're hoping for, Councillor.
Very good. Thank you very much for being here and for your advocacy on behalf of your community in this difficult matter.
Profound thanks to you and to the council as well. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Benjamin? Okay, seeing none. Benjamin, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Members, that completes the list of deputants on this item. Are there any questions of staff?
I will ask the staff.
Sure.
And I'm just going to ask, who would be the lead on bringing all these threads together for this report? Don't know if it would be city legal, but somewhere, or planning, but I do believe that we need a lead. So I'm not sure if anyone's had a chance to think about that. I know it's the pandemic and things have, what is that, been kicked off the ledge or whatever Councillor Cressy said earlier. They've fallen off the ledge, but bringing this back, I'd just like to be assured that this will be, all these pieces will be pulled together into one place.
Good morning, Councillor. Chris Ellis from Municipal Licensing and Standards. Yes, we are working to ensure that there will be a response given, for sure.
And on the noise situation, what's happened with that, Chris, please?
I'm dealing with the zoning situation.
You're just with zoning. Okay, so are you going to tell me that MLS is going to be the lead then? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, you can consider MLS.
And that would be you?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Look forward to getting all that information. Thank you, Chris.
My pleasure.
Anyone else with questions of staff? Seeing none, Councillor Fletcher, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have that letter today, and this, as Mr. Stein has told us, has been simmering and going along for a long time. It's another one of these artificial turf fields where a commercial relationship is made with the provider, with the service provider, and then it's outside of the purview of the of the school board at a certain point when they've signed these rights over. It's happened at Monarch Park, which caused a lot of traffic issues, but Monarch Park field was right up against the GO train, the VIA train. So it certainly didn't have the same impact as this, which is right up against residential. And I know from being there, it's been very difficult. I've heard the swearing, I've seen it all, seen the balls over. And also, despite many attempts, just getting the attention of those at the TCDSB that could intervene here to improve the situation has been difficult. There have been charges laid that seem to have gone nowhere around noise. Now the zoning issue has arisen. So I'm really looking forward to having something come forward where the city can assist in whatever way to make sure that the contract that is TCDSB has entered into isn't one that has such a negative impact on the surrounding community. So thank you, Mr. Chair. I look forward to support for this motion.
Thank you. All those in favor of the recommendations in the letter? Opposed, if any, that carries. Councillor Matlow, are we ready to deal with item 4 yet?
There seems to be ongoing conversation between different divisions. That seems to be the topic of the day about the amendment. Is there another item that you can do before you come to mine?
Yeah, I should alert you, we only have 3 items left, so.
I understand.
Okay.
I know. I'm
Yep.
on the phone right now trying to figure it out.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Councillor Wong-Tam, are you ready to deal with item 13 yet?
I am, Mr. Speaker, and so is the clerk. So
Oh,
Ellen, thank you
actually-
very much.
Actually,
can I,
sorry
members?
to the chair, if
Yeah.
I may. Could we just take a 5-minute recess?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So I
Everybody,
can sort out, because
so-
I have to sort out the other motions as well. Okay?
okay, very good. I'm just going to move all those in favor of recessing for 5 minutes, opposed to any, that carries. Okay. See you all back in at 10:45.
Test. To the chair, you may resume when ready. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. We'll consider now item TE30.4 residential demolition application 1528 Bathurst Street. I have a deputant listed, Mike Foderick. Mike, are you with us?
To the chair, this is the host. Mike is present. I am now unmuting their mic.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Hi, Mike. Long time no talk. Welcome.
Long time indeed, sir, and thank you for having me today. My name is Mike Foderick. I'm a lawyer for the applicant. This report is before council because there's a residential house being demolished, and when no residential house is being proposed to replace it, a report like this comes before council. The reason that no residential house is proposed to replace the residential house being demolished in this particular case is because the applicant doesn't intend to build one. It intends to build a city park. We're building a city park because there is a development application down the street where staff requested as an offsite parkland dedication that this new park be constructed. So that's why we have to bring this application, and that's why we're here today. Chapter 667 of the Municipal Code, which I think most folks are familiar with, doesn't apply in this case. 1528 Bathurst has 2 rental units as defined in Chapter 667. I think it's well known that 6 residential rental units are required in order for Chapter 667 to apply. And I'll just add by way of an aside, both are vacant in this case, if that's relevant to anyone. It's noteworthy that 1530 Bathurst, which is not part of the report today and will be presumably subject of a future demolition permit application, maybe even a future report on this council agenda, also proposed to be turned into a park, contains 3 rental units. So even if you were to consider these 2 properties together, which I'm going to submit that it's not appropriate to do, it only reaches 5 rental dwelling units. But again, the reason it's a separate report, the reason it's not on the agenda at the same time is because the properties have not merged on title, which in itself means it's not appropriate for the purposes of Chapter 667 to consider the 2 properties as one in any event. But even if you did, is my point, it would still not reach the 6. And I would just add by way of an aside that the very presence of this report on the community council agenda sort of is indicative of the fact that the chief building official and city legal agree with that assessment, because where Chapter 667 does apply, this isn't the manner in which demolitions proceed, as I think everyone here well knows. That said, it might be very straightforward. However, the councillor referred to a motion, and what I expect the councillor's motion to be about is the fact that the owner, at his behest and the behest of staff, has agreed informally to provide a what I'll call a gratuitous payment to the former tenants, the 2 former tenants in question. Again, the units are vacant. There's no current tenants in this particular case. Again, the exact wording, what I expect it to be, is to say that the owner agrees to provide the current or immediate former tenants of the 2 rental units located at 1528 Bathurst Street with a one-time payment equivalent to 5 months' rent, exclusive of any Residential Tenancies Act obligations, plus a moving allowance of $1,500 each. Such payment to be conditional on prior vacant possession of the building. The aforesaid is to be secured by way of a legal undertaking by the owner provided to the city prior to the issuance of a demolition permit. That's my understanding of what the council's motion will be. And if it is, in fact, that exact wording, that's something we'd find acceptable. Again, I want to reiterate, this is a gratuitous payment that the owner would be making. Again, we're only doing this at all because we're trying to build a city park that the city requested. We have no obligation to provide any such compensation, but we are willing to go above and beyond. And it's because the councillor, some staff in particular, Deanna Chorney, Warren Tamir, and others have been very insistent that the residents, the former tenants, get something, even if Section 111 doesn't apply, that they get, they get some sort of a benefit greater than the mere Residential Tenancies Act obligation, which, depending on when the tenants moved out, it may be 1 month away, maybe nothing that they're entitled to. So this will ensure that they get a handsome sum, if you will. And again, in order to assist, in order to make this go smoothly, we're going to agree to that at the behest of the councillor and staff. So subject to your questions, I think it's a good outcome, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, and there will result, I expect, in a city park being created, one that I'm sure will end up being a iconic, legendary park, as well as, there's going to be something significant in it for the former tenants of this particular address. So those are my submissions, and thank you for hearing me out, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the deputy? I don't see any. Mike, thank you so much for your assistance today. That completes the list of deputies. Are there any questions of staff? I don't see any. Councillor Matlow, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So yes, I have a motion, and I want to thank staff for the work that they've done in supporting our efforts to advocate on behalf of these tenants, and for the assistance in preparing this motion. While there is a respectful disagreement with respect to the protections that Section 111 of the City of Toronto Act should provide to these tenants, that disagreement exists. And therefore, this goes above and beyond those potential protections to ensure that these tenants, not only, I would actually reframe it from saying it's gratuitous contributions, I would describe it as fair, as ethical, and as the right thing to do. And therefore I appreciate Camross' willingness to work with us to ensure that these tenants, these former tenants soon to be, are treated with respect and have the ability to have a more affordable transition, given that they will be displaced due to this development. So again, want to thank staff, want to thank Camross, and I want to thank the tenants for their advocacy, without which I don't believe that we would have had the ability to arrive at this resolution.
Are there any questions for the mover? Seeing none. Anyone else wish to speak to the item? Seeing none. Councillor Layton, if I could ask you, there's Councillor Bradford. Okay, so I have quorum present. We'll take the motions from Councillor Matlow and the report all as a package. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Okay. One moment. Item TE30.13, Councillor Wong Tam, you held that?
Yes, I do have a motion. The first motion was already placed on the screen. That was to establish the community consultation with ASL interpretation to develop the site plan working group. And the last motion that you see on the screen is to request that the Director of City Planning work with the applicant to strongly advocate for the full replacement of the actual hotel use and the total number of hotel rooms affected by this application, and that the final report should reflect this direction. This application at 475 Yonge Street, Mr. Chair, I'll just take a moment to speak to it, is one that this committee has seen before. Community Council back in 2017 worked with the applicant to approve what was then a rezoning application for the Marriott Courtyard Hotel. That hotel has served the downtown business community for a very significant amount of time. It's a critical piece of tourism infrastructure. We know that it is well used and it is very popular and it is successful. In 2017, there was a successful rezoning of this development to allow for a 48 and 58-story tower. That's a pair of towers on one single block on Yonge Street. We went through significant work with the community. There was lots of consultation, very robust engagement, and in about 4.5 years afterwards, we are back here again because the applicant is rezoning this application and they're asking for 47 more stories combined on top of what they've already received. If you take a review of that type of GFA, this community council is not unsophisticated. They know how developers work. Essentially, they're asking to wedge a third, what is the equivalent of a third tower onto a single block of Yonge Street. So I want the applicant to be aware that there is not going to be an easy ride through the development review process. What you're asking for is extremely aggressive, and there is no provision of affordable housing, even as we recognize that the city is in the grips of a housing crisis. We are trying to hold on to desperately needed tourism infrastructure that we need to rebuild our economy, especially in the downtown core. This application does not achieve any appropriate transition between the towers there is a level of inappropriateness when it comes to tower massing, as well as the tower height, as I've already noted. The size of the floor plate is too large, and not to mention the challenges of adding that much more density onto a site that is already very restrictive. And then on top of that, there's going to be significant new shadows on a brand new park that we haven't even opened, which is Dr. Lillian McGregor Park. All of this was done under a special area site plan review, which we actually had worked hard to develop as policies to help guide development in this neighborhood. And this application is blowing everything that we worked on wide open again. So we have spent years working with on this application that was approved in 2017, and now we have to go through this entire review once again, and the community is dragged out one more time to review what is a very aggressive application, and I just don't see enough community good and public good out of this application at this point in time. So I just wanted to move those motions and also to add my remarks to this report. Thank you.
Any questions of the mover? Anyone else to speak to the item? All those in favor of the motions and the item together? Opposed, if any? That carries. One moment, please. Okay, the next item we have is item 15. East Harbor Transit Oriented Community Stakeholder Meeting Update. Councillor Fletcher, you had questions of staff?
Yes, I did.
Go ahead and ask them now, please.
Can you just let me know who's here? Thank you, Chair.
I don't have a list of who's present, but we
So-
are now at the end of the meeting. So Councillor Fletcher, just ask your questions and we'll get the best answer we can.
This report, basically, I'm just unsure how you interpreted the motions that were previously made. And I would like to know who I'm going to speak to, Mr. Chair. I think that's fair. Please, thank you.
You'll find out in a moment.
Pardon me?
Through the chair, it's James Pertla, councillor.
Oh, good morning, James.
Good morning. So we were looking at the motions that you passed, or that you put forward, pardon me, and that council passed in December, related to convening a meeting with your office, with what is in effect a local advisory committee, and then establishing a working group. And so we have been working to pull together the potential list of organizations to include in that, as well as working to find through existing consultant contracts some support to help manage that process.
Just I've just gone through, there's quite a lot of motions since I think Councillor Wong-Tam walked that on in October, and then there was a follow-up in November, and then there were the council changes, which had added a 30%, up to 30% affordable housing. But really, as I read it yesterday when I reviewed it, it said to report on the details. In other words, I understood that, and perhaps it wasn't as clear, to report on how you're going to do that, what your plan is for pulling that together, not to have done it already.
Well, so councillor, we had interpreted the motion as holding a meeting and reporting on the outcome of that. So if we were mistaken, I apologize.
Yes, I think so, and I'm happy to point that out, because of course these are all technical matters, as technical as transit is, as you know. So really, why don't you tell me the details then, since you've started on them?
The details in terms of
Your plan. Your plan.
So as you have requested, we will work with your office to confirm the list. I've got a draft list that I can share with your staff to get their input. in terms of who you would like to see at this community meeting. And we've also been in conversations, certainly with the official plan team in SIPA, who are dealing with the employment conversion request, but other parts of City Planning Division that need to be engaged in this meeting as well, to ensure that that we've got the full scope of city staff there to be able to talk about the East Harbour TOC proposal, both from the perspective of what's on the table and how the city, how this relates to the city's policies and an existing planning framework.
Great, thank you. So perhaps we should just engage in a meeting to go over all the motions and be clear so we're on the same page. I know it's right after Christmas, so I didn't have a chance to call you yesterday to go over that. Thank you very much.
I think that Jeff Cantos, if I may, Councillor, had also had some things to add to the response on the motions.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. Yes.
Thank you, James. And then through the chair, part of the plan is to ensure that the preliminary assessment for the conversion request is also made public, which it's going to.
Sorry, I can't really hear you, Mr. Cantos. Could you speak up a tiny bit, please? Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's good. No.
Part of the plan was to ensure that the staff's preliminary assessment on the conversion request for the lands was considered by Planning and Housing Committee, which is going to next week, Wednesday. So then that position will be made forward, and it will help us with the narrative for further consultation. And so it's tying that, this item today, the item next week at Planning and Housing Committee, together as a package.
And so I guess I'm just going to ask Mr. Pertla back then. The Cadillac Fairview and IO had their own ad hoc committee, did they not?
Through the chair, that is correct. They have appointed a local advisory committee.
They have a local advisory committee for themselves, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And so I'm interested in our approach because have we given this all away to the province at this point? Because if they'd like to have a local advisory committee of their own, that's fine. But it still may be a planning application. There's many other issues here, including transit. We are paying for Smart Track. So I'm quite interested in the juxtaposition of an a developer-led ad hoc committee and what its status is as far as commenting on any application versus a city-led non-ad hoc committee that is going to be able to discuss an application and everything else that goes with it at this site. Could you clarify that for me? Because it appears to me the developers committee has a tremendous amount of status with the city.
So through the chair, I don't know that I would say that the developers committee has a tremendous amount of status. I think that reflects the nature of the process that we're facing in terms of the IOTOC process, Councillor. But with that said, we are anticipating that once we get through this negotiation with the province, the next phases, and subject to, if everything goes as they are suggesting with a minister's zoning order, that further planning work, the plan of subdivision, site plans, and whatever other kinds of planning considerations there may be for adjacent properties, would be city-led. And so what is proposed in this motion to establish an advisory or working group could very well function beyond just a one-off meeting, but for further engagement with the community as we are going forward. We are also in our conversations with Cadillac Fairview talking about the importance of their engagement going forward and the expectations the city will have about public engagement on the fuller development of the plan for East Harbour, and that will be a city-led, the city will be much more engaged in directing and leading that. I'd also point to the direction from Community Council, first from Community Council and then Council about setting up a more formal city-led consultation process on TOCs going forward. So, with all of the TOCs that we're facing right now, it has been an IO-led process.
but this is a TOC that doesn't have a residential permission there. But unlike the
You
other
are correct.
TOCs. Is there any other TOC that has any core employment?
The TOC proposals at Exhibition are in employment. I can't remember off the top of my head if they're core employment, but they are employment.
And
And
would you,
then
sorry,
there is also a proposal at Woodbine that's not part of the subway program, but one that's emerging at Woodbine in the northwest.
so just quickly, would you agree with me that even in the developer-led, the provincial developer-led consultation with their group, that everybody was very clear that they wanted at least 30% affordable housing, should this proceed?
So there were several voices pushing for a good portion of affordable housing. Certainly you and Housing Now talked about up to 30%, and that was a key issue that came out from participants on their
And
in their public
participants as well.
meetings, participants in the public meetings and on their LAC.
And that they wanted, yes. So also in a city-led group, would we be careful to kind of vet the social media of people who might be on our city-led group to make sure there's no nothing on social media that would, I don't know how we do that now. Do we do that? Or do we have that practice established yet?
I can't answer you, Councillor, more generally. I'm not sure if community planning would do that in where they have more experience in these kinds of consultation processes. You know, we would be looking for representatives of organizations in the area. But, you know, part of what we want to do in consultation is ensure that we've got a cross section of views and we're not filtering people out for only one view on a particular proposal. We
Yes,
want to
but
make sure we've got a cross
a
section.
racist view wouldn't be something that we would be looking for.
No. Right.
So racist tweets, etc., might be something that we would be concerned about for somebody on a city-led group.
Certainly, we would not want to see that, but I'm not sure how we're doing that kind of a vetting. Your
Right.
staff may have some idea about some of the members of the community groups.
Yes, I'm just talking about the developer-led group because it is entirely developer-led. Would you indicate to me, please, at the developer-led group, whether or not they actually talked about the fact this is a core employment area? And would the city-led group be clear that this is a core employment area?
So the issue of this being a core employment area did not come up in great detail from what Cadillac Fairview put forward in the group. There were statements that we made and that you made, that city staff made and you made at the LAC meetings and public meetings to make sure that was on the table. Certainly in terms of the city-led group, that would be a key part of what we'd be talking about, the city's objectives around employment in the area and how we're trying to insulate or protect the employment commitments on this East Harbour site.
Thank you. May I ask one last question to Mr. Cantos, who's with us today? You may have noticed that I'm just wondering how, and you might wish to answer as well, Mr. Pertola, that somehow establishing that employment is a reasonable and important land use is an uphill battle after Cadillac Fairview has told everybody what a great plan they have. And I'm wondering how you would intend to do that, because it appears that if you want to maintain employment, that you're somehow against housing. And I would hate to see the city painted into that corner. And there is a very big attempt by the developer and their friends to do that. So I'm very interested in your approach here and how you plan to do that. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And through the chair, in past experiences, how we've secured employment the provision of employment uses as well as securing the lands is through the words in the policy. So for example, in Downsview and in the Christie's example in Etobicoke, employment was developed prior to or concurrent with residential is the words that we use in the policy to tie the development of any residential where they were permitted with concurrent or prior to development of employment uses, as well as securing lands by retaining the designation of employment.
And
Do you,
I'll add
do you-
to, oh,
yeah, sorry, thank you. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to add, Councillor, that in the context of our negotiations with IO and Cadillac Fairview, we have pointed to the agreements, the settlement agreements that the city has reached, as Jeff mentioned, on the Christie site or at Celestica, where there were very firm commitments around the delivery of employment uses as part of the overall development.
Right, but would you not agree with me that we already had the employment uses agreed to by the first Gulf proposal that we spent 3 years developing?
Yes, we did.
This was not, this was already done.
Yes.
And so this is now coming in to change the master plan. And that master plan has some city land that is supposedly in the master plan. Are you prepared to assist me in figuring that part out?
So
Status
certainly,
of that.
well, there are city lands to the south, and then on the northeast part of the Unilever precinct.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the status of those is they are still core employment
That is correct.
and they should
And
remain
they're
core
not,
employment.
and they're not part of they should not be part of the MZO. They're not part of this this TOC proposal.
And Mr. Cantos, what steps can we take to ensure those lands remain core employment, the city lands?
Through the chair, council would not recommend that they be converted. And we can do that through the municipal comprehensive review process. We can,
okay.
That would be the tool.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your answers. And Mr. Chair, I appreciate your indulgence on this very difficult, extremely complex, as you're well aware, file. Because as you've heard, it's not really the city in the driver's seat. It is IO and Cadillac Fairview. But we still have a role to play and would like to make sure we play it to our fullest and that citizens understand we're not anti-housing, but we are pro-jobs, and we understand the importance of these lands to maintaining a strong economic base and an economic future in the city. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for the indulgence. And with that, I'll move the report.
Okay, moving the report. Are there any questions of the mover? Seeing none. Anyone else to speak to the item? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. So, members, put on your party hats and blow your whistles. We've successfully got through all the agenda items. That just leaves doing the bills. And when the clerk is ready, if she could put the bills up, I'll happily move them. Okay, I move that the Toronto East York Community Council pass and declare as bylaws bills 10 to 14 and 16 to 27 prepared for the January 6, 2022 meeting 30 of the Community Council. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. And just need a confirmatory bill. That the Toronto East York Community Council pass and declare as a bylaw a confirmatory bill to confirm the legislative proceedings of the Toronto East York Community Council acting under delegated authority at meeting 30 on January 6, 2022. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So that concludes our business. Members, I just want to thank you for your patience today. And I especially want to acknowledge the Toronto City staff, the clerk, the AV staff, the technical staff monitoring this. Doing this agenda completely virtually has been a bit of a challenge, but they certainly rose to it, and we successfully conducted all of our business. Have a great day. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
Mr. Chair.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
folks.
clerk.